Scream 7 finds Sidney Prescott's daughter in Isabel May. Guys, do you recognize her? I don't think I've seen Isabel May in anything. Okay, Neve Campbell is back as Sidney Prescott in Spyglass Media Group's upcoming Scream 7. And she's bringing her daughter along for the terror. Deadline reports that 1883 actress Isabel May is confirmed to play Sidney's daughter in the sequel. Interesting. First question for you guys. How do you feel about bringing Sidney's children into the mix? I want to hear your thoughts. I'm going to keep reading while you put your thoughts together. The 7th installment will hit theaters February 27th, 2026. Original Scream scribe Kevin Williamson will direct Scream 7. The film, which is currently untitled, was written by Guy Busick from a story by James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick. Nothing against James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick. They are talented writers, but what they've given us with Scream 5 and Scream 6, I guess comparing them to what Kevin Williamson gave us in 1, 2, and 4, Kevin Williamson, I definitely put him quite a bit above them in terms of crafting a story, right? And I think there's definite potential there in the stories. Like, I think Scream 6 had a lot, and I mean a lot of potential. What baffles me is the biggest problem, the plot armor in Scream 6, that was an easy fix, honestly. It was a very easy fix. All they had to do was kill one person. That's it. Just one person, just one little bitty person. And then that would have canceled all the other the problems from people, you know, because that's the biggest thing. I think people would have forgiven the story if one person would have died. If one person would have died, then yeah, I think it would have, kind of like Scream 5, how they killed Dewey. That hurt. You still feel that, right? I think they should have done that with Scream 6, and they didn't. It's a shame. Honestly, I think they should have killed either Tara or Sam. As much as people love them too, that would have been a ballsy move. Probably would have pissed off a lot of people too. Sean Sharon said, I've never heard of her. Derek says, makes sense story-wise. I hope that this is the last Scream, though. 6 was a train wreck, in my opinion. Do you think they would have the balls to kill Sidney? No, there's no way they're going to kill Sidney. Just because going forward, we all know there's going to be a Scream 8, probably a Scream 9. I do think that Stu is their, I don't know if you'd call it their ace in the hole. What do you call that thing that you hold in case of emergency? You know, like he's the axe behind the glass to break in case of emergency. I think that's why we haven't seen Stu yet. I think they're waiting to play that card because I think it would be an irresistible card, not only for people that want Stu to come back, but especially for people that always say that Stu should never come back. They'd be the first ones at the theater. They would be. Only reason being is because they'd be highly curious. Can they prove me wrong? Because I think it would be ridiculous. Not me personally, but they might be thinking it'd be ridiculous to bring Stu back. I hear so many people say that a TV will 100% of the time kill somebody if it falls on their head, and I don't think 100% of the time. I don't even think 60% of the time, if I'm being honest, guys. I think if a TV falls on somebody's head, I think 40% of the time they'll die, maybe 50. All right. But yeah, Sidney, there's no way they're killing Sidney. According to Neve Campbell, the upcoming 7th installment will be a return to the franchise's roots in the sense that Sidney Prescott will be the central character of the movie. What do you guys think about that? Let me know. Isabel May's casting certainly supports that and also indicates a huge time jump since the last entry. At least considering that Sidney sat out of Scream 6 to take care of her small children. Interesting. Either way, Scream 7 seems to make Ghostface slaying a family affair. Unless she hid one of her children that was older. You know, there's always a writing angle that they can use to fix a problem. If they don't want to jump too far into the future, which I don't think they would, I think they'll find a way to fix that little error of her having small children. Do we know that, that those are her only children, right? There's ways around it. Courtney Cox is expected to return as Gale Weathers, but hasn't officially signed on yet. Sidney was featured as supporting character in 2022 Scream, while Campbell infamously did not return for the following year's Scream 6 due to a pay dispute. Those two movies, both directed by the filmmakers Radio Silence, mixed a new generation of characters with the legacy characters. But much has happened since Scream 6 was released. Now the question for you guys, do you think the legacy characters, were they really that necessary in Scream 5? I mean, aside from Dewey, obviously. I think Dewey was definitely important. You know, he was a major player in that movie, but Sidney was kind of useless, and so was Gale. And also, do you think Sidney being in Scream 6 would have helped that movie any, you know, with all that was going on? The franchise has been mired in controversy in the past several months, with new series leads Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega both exiting the project. Barrera was fired while it was subsequently announced that Ortega wouldn't be returning. At this time, we still don't know if Jasmine Savoy Brown or Mason Gooding will be returning for Scream 7. And if they do return, you're going to have a problem with that time jump. Producers are Project X Entertainment's James Vanderbilt, William Sherrick, and Paul. Derek says, yeah, she could have had an older daughter that wasn't mentioned in 5. Right, yeah. It's always a possibility. I mean, hell, Laurie Strode had freaking Josh Hartnett in one movie, and then she had freaking Jamie Lloyd in other movies, and there's always ways around that. Sean Sheridan says, Sam were strong enough replacements. I agree with that. I like Sam and Tara. Yeah, Dewey was essential. The other two, not so much. Derek. Rosemary says, I love Sidney and Gale, but no. About them being necessary in Scream 5. Yeah, I don't really think they were. Derek says, did Sidney have twins in 5, or am I not? You know what? For some reason, I'm thinking I remember that too. Guys, if you remember, let us know, because for some reason, I feel like I remember them saying that she had twins, which gives them more of an excuse to state that, oh, beside the twins, she still had this older daughter. I mean, it's kind of like Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne. They got these two kids, but they have an older daughter that chooses to stay out of the limelight. And so we never hear anything about the oldest daughter. You know, just in general, having Sidney's kids in the movie, man, I think that's a genius idea, because what it does is it sets up an opportunity going forward. If they had the balls to kill Sidney in this movie, it sort of pads the wound a little bit by having her daughter there. Now, what you got to do in that situation, though, is you got to make sure that the daughter is very likable and the audience is rooting for her throughout the whole movie. You know, I want to love that daughter by the end of this movie. So that way, if they do have the balls to kill Sidney, then it's fine to go forward with the daughter. Another idea that I was thinking about, too, was I don't think we've seen the end of Sam and Tara. Raised on Fiction, thank you for joining. Would y'all prefer they do a continuation or go back to the original and ignore the sequels so they could bring dead characters back? So what Raised on Fiction is saying there is pulling a Halloween 2018 and ignoring all the sequels. My answer to that, Raised, would be I don't think it's necessary in Scream. I think Scream's continuity being, you know, was it 6 movies? They all tie into each other quite nicely, actually. Even if you don't like all the movies, it is nice to have a series that maintains continuity for freaking 6 now on the 7th movie. And I'm wondering if they'll mention the events of 5 and 6. I'm sure they will. You know, and I think as long as you've been keeping it going with this continuity, why stop, right? As long as it doesn't hurt anything. There are dead characters that, quote unquote, dead characters like Stu. You keep continuity. It's fine if Stu comes back, because again, the general rule, as far as I'm concerned in horror, unless you see the character taken out on a gurney with the body bag zipped up, and you have to see the coroner working on him and see him go into the ground and see the gravedigger putting dirt on there, and maybe go forward 10 years to make sure he doesn't come out. That's the rule in horror. Anything's possible. anything's possible, you know? And I don't think Scream's an exception. Scream hasn't really introduced a supernatural element. Even though it's mentioned in part 3 that the killer could be supernatural. No, he wasn't. I'm trying to think. The character that I think most people would want to come back would be Dewey, sorry. Or Stu too, probably. But yeah, even freaking Neve Campbell was upset about that they killed Dewey, you know? And I think she thought it was kind of a genius move at first. She said as time went on, and thinking back on it, she got really upset, like, oh damn, now there will never be Dewey. She even wants them to find a way to bring back Dewey to retcon. So I don't even think Neve Campbell minds a retcon of 5 and 6. What do you guys think about that? What if this movie started off and you quickly realize that 5 and 6 never happened? And the way that would happen was this movie starts out and in the first 5 minutes, you see Dewey walk into frame. Would that piss you off if they did that? I don't know if it pissed me off. I mean, I'm not a Scream fanatic like a lot of people are, but I can imagine Scream fanatics might be pretty pissed off. Sean says, bringing back Stu would be lazy writing, but at this stage, I'm happy with it. Let's go nuts. And that, I think that the last thing you just said there, let's go nuts. And what franchise would be better to go nuts in than Scream? Because I think one of the biggest complaints about the franchise is the, I guess, predictability in terms of plot structure. It's usually the same type third act, with the big reveal. It's usually 2 killers. They did try some big swings in 6 with having 3 killers, but the lesson there was didn't really matter. I think but they do need to change things up. They do, without going too crazy. I do think, man, I tell you, that would shake things up if they brought Stu back in there. I think that would really shake things up. And I don't know if people forget this, but Scream 3 was supposed to have Stu in it. And that goes a long way for me. That was literally the plot before Columbine happened. So the idea of Stu being alive dates back, almost 30 years. The one big thing that I would want, it all comes down to the atmosphere. I think I want a really dark Scream movie, kind of like, and this, I might be completely wrong on this, guys, because I know Scream has its own flavor, but think about this. Wouldn't it be kind of cool if a Scream movie captured the vibe of, like, say, Halloween 4? Remember the vibe of Halloween 4 and just how dark and serious and atmospheric it was? What if you had a really dark and atmospheric Scream movie? I think that could be pretty damn cool, actually. And I liked, one thing I like about Halloween is, like the sheriffs, like Sheriff Brackett. I like Sheriff Brackett. There was just a certain vibe to Sheriff Brackett. And with Dewey, you're going a completely different direction with your sheriff department, right? Dewey's he's more of a comic relief type deal, right? And you love the guy. But it'd be cool to have a Sheriff Brackett type character in a Scream movie. You get where I'm going? Well, hey there, guys. You just watched a clip from my exclusive live stream that I do with my patrons and channel members. I do these twice a month, and then I take clips from them. So consider becoming a patron or a channel member. Thanks for watching, guys.